Okay, hello again. This is Dolores Cannon with the Metaphysical Hour. We're back again, and we are live tonight. So if anyone does want to call in, I will give out the numbers so you can call. The number for the United States is 1-888-268-4313. That's 1-888-268-4313. And if we have anyone listening overseas, the international number that people can call in is 1-281-419-7697. 1-281-419-7687. Okay. Now, in the past weeks, I've been talking a lot about my work and the things that I do, and last week I talked about the trips. So I think it's time now for me to begin focusing on the information in my books. And one thing I don't like about doing it this way, I'm so used to giving lectures where there's audiences out there, and I can look at faces, and I can look out over the audience, and then you know if you're reaching them or not. You know the way they are receiving you by the impressions on their face. And I really miss that, because here I am sitting in my office looking at the wall, so I have to imagine there's people out there who are actually listening. Okay, but I've written 13 books. You can see there's going to be a lot of material I can cover, and it all deals with the metaphysical, the strange, and the paranormal, and the unusual. And those of you who have listened to the other shows that I've done know that my books are based on my work with hypnosis. All of the information that I've received that I write about came through the information I got with my sessions with clients. And it's accumulated now for 30 years of doing this and thousands of people. So I don't channel. The information I get is like a reporter, and I put it all together. Tonight I wanted to talk about my book, Between Death and Life. And I know I'm just going to be able to touch on part of it because there's so much information in that book. But I'm used to speaking on that for as long as 3 hours. So I was trying to figure what I can put in 1 hour that would be condensing it to hit the most important parts of all. When I've spoken on this, sometimes at Unity churches, and they make the announcement that I'm going to speak on Between Death and Life, people say, isn't that a mistake? Isn't it supposed to be the other way around, between life and death? But no, it isn't, because that's a whole other life that you do live when you leave the earth plane and go to the spirit side. And that's why I decided to call it that. Between death and life is a whole other existence that you go to. Now, when you're doing past life regressions, as I do, in order to do it correctly, if the person the hypnotist is doing it in the right way, they will take the person all the way through the past life, hitting on all the most important days, the most important events in that life as it relates to their life now. But if it is done correctly, they will take the person through the death experience, because many of the problems the people have in the present lifetime come from the way they died in the other lifetime. And I know there's some hypnotists that I've heard will say, oh, no, we can't do that. What if something were to happen to the person if they relived their death in another life? Maybe they might experience it and have actual physical repercussions in this life, especially at the deep level that I work with, where they really do relive everything. And they said that's dangerous. So they're taught not to do it. Don't go near the death experience. But to me, that is where a wealth of information comes from. Because as I said, if they had problems in this lifetime, especially phobias, they can be traced back to the way the person died in the other lifetime. And I have found no danger at all. But then I've been doing it consistently for 30 years. I still say this kind of work, past life regression, is not for anyone to play around with, because you have to know what you're doing. And I don't know if it could be dangerous in the wrong hands, but anything, if someone is doing it that don't know what we're dealing with, it could be harmful to the person. So it's better to have training and to know exactly what you're doing. But I have taken people through just about every kind of death that you could possibly imagine. Most of the deaths that we've gone through have just been simple, ordinary deaths like they are here, where they've died in a hospital or they've died of a lingering illness. But I've taken them through where they've been hung, they've been burned at the stake, run over by carriages, many, many deaths in wars and plane crashes, just about every kind of death you could imagine. And in my book, The Soul Remembers Hiroshima, I had a young girl go through dying with the atomic bomb at Hiroshima as she relived the life of a Japanese man. So I feel that I've had enough experience with it to know there will not be any physical repercussions on the person that we're working with as they go through the death experience. But here again, if it has to be handled, all of this, even the therapy has to be handled by a professional who knows what they're doing. I always tell people, they want to know, well, how will they know the therapist is correct if they're the right one for them to see? I tell them to rely on your gut instinct. Rely on your feelings. If you feel you can trust that person, then work with them. If there's something about them that you don't feel comfortable with, then don't work with that person. But it's the same in any kind of therapy. If you're not comfortable with any therapist, you're not going to get the kind of care that you need, and you're not going to get the results. Because I have found the subconscious is protecting the person at all times. If it feels that the person is not, the best interest of the client, the subconscious will not allow anything to be released, or will only be bits and pieces, and it won't be the most important parts. So the subconscious is protecting you, and it's not allowing anything to come out that is not in your best interest, or not that maybe you can't handle. It won't come out. So, but trust your instincts, and if you don't feel comfortable with a therapist, then find someone else that you do feel comfortable with. But anyway, I have not found any problems with going through the death experience. Now, the information that I put in that book, Between Death and Life, came from working with hundreds and hundreds of people. I wrote it as though one person was speaking in some parts of it, but actually it was the accumulation and gathering of information from hundreds of people. The way I look at it, it's almost like a scientific experiment. If all of these people report the same things happening when the person dies and where they go on the other side, then I think that is scientific evidence, because it is repeatable and it is definitely verifiable information. If none of these people know each other, they don't know what I'm looking for, they don't know what I'm doing, and they all come up with the same kind of story, I think there is validity there. Because every one of the people I've worked with, I soon found they were all reporting the death sensation, what it felt like, the same way, and they were reporting going to the same places on the other side. And they also reported the different ways, things that happened to you as you more or less, I guess you would say, report in to the masters and the elders, and they go over everything. And then when you go through the parts about coming back, everyone reported the same things. So that, to me, gives it a greater validity. All right. I have a daughter who is a nurse, and she worked for many years in intensive care. Now, she said the saddest cases that she had in intensive care was usually an old woman or an old man who were dying, and they were terrified. They had been told by their church that unless you were perfect, you were not going to heaven. You'd end up in a horrible place like hell. And maybe the person has lived a good life. Maybe they have done the best they could. You know, being human, that's about all you can expect out of us. But my daughter said this one old woman was just terrified because she kept saying, I'm not perfect, and I'm going to go. The church says I will go to hell. Now, what kind of a service does that do the person for a church to make them afraid to die, that they die in fear? I don't see how that is helping the person at all, to have them live a good life and then they're dying in terror when they should be dying in peace, knowing that all they're doing is going home. That we have done this hundreds and hundreds of times because we have had hundreds and hundreds of lives. And we have gone through this procedure, the life and then the dying and going to the other side, where they call going home. We have done it so many times. It's just that while we're alive, we forget these things. And they fade away whenever you enter the life. We don't realize it's a very common thing that our body is going to go through again, and there's absolutely no need for fear. Incidentally, I have never found a hell in any of my work. I don't see how it could possibly be, because a loving God would not do that. You know, there is the analogy that as parents, if your child messes up, makes a mistake, are you going to throw them into the oven? No, you would give them a chance. You would give them a chance to do it again and do it right. I know as mothers especially, we always say we will stick with our children no matter what they do. We will always try to help them. We will try to make life easier for them and help them realize their mistakes. Now, what's the difference between that and a loving Father, a loving God? Because God would not do that. He would not punish his children in that way. And, of course, I've done a lot of Bible research also, which I will be getting into in some of my other talks, and I know that the idea of hell did not come from the original Bible. But I have never found anything like that. I have always found total forgiveness, no matter what the person does when they cross to the other side. Because life is just a school. Life on earth is a school. We come here to learn lessons. Each lesson is different. Maybe some of the lessons are harder than others. But you decide yourself when you're going to come in what kind of a challenge you're going to put before you. So it doesn't matter, even if something evil or something bad has happened. It's all up to what happens